It was all about how you orchestrate people, processes, and technology. That's how it has been. Now, you also are adding to that these LLMs, which are like digital brains. How do you orchestrate people, process, and technologies or apps and these digital brains?
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're listening. Welcome back to AI and the Future of Work. Thanks again for making this one of the most downloaded podcasts about the future of work. I'm your host, Dan Turchin, CEO of PeopleRain, the world's most loved AI platform for IT and HR employee service. I'm also an investor and an advisor to more than 30 AI-first companies and a firm believer in the power of technology to make humans better. I've mentioned previously, this podcast makes unicorns frequently. Congrats to great recent guest Guru Banavar, whose company Viome just raised an $86.5 million Series C from Coastal Ventures and others. Guru, welcome to the growing community of AI and the Future of Work unicorns. Now, we learn from AI thought leaders weekly on this show, and of course, the added bonus is you get one AI fun fact each week. Today's fun fact: Jacob Roach writes this week in Digital Trends Online that AI can now steal your passwords with almost 100% accuracy. Researchers from Cornell trained a machine learning model to listen to keyboard clicks. A phone app using the integrated microphone demonstrated behavior while listening to passwords being entered on a Zoom call. It accurately recreated the passwords 93% of the time. Consider this a public service announcement to change passwords frequently, and when possible, use biometric authentication as a second factor in addition to text-based passwords. As always, we'll link to the full article in today's show notes. Now, shifting to this week's conversation. Vijay Tella is an enterprise software legend, having founded unicorn and Cloud 100 company Workato nearly a decade ago after an amazing run as the founding SVP of engineering at TIBCO and CEO of Kik, which was acquired by Skype. Vijay is a visionary leader who has raised more than $400 million to date and built a team of nearly 1,000 employees. Workato is a leader in the fast-growing enterprise automation space, and the company's customer list reads like the Wall Street Journal, including organizations like Adobe, Atlassian, Coca-Cola, and Walmart, to name a few. Vijay's latest achievement is his newly published book, The New Automation Mindset, in which he and his co-authors put the current generative AI euphoria into historical context and provide timely insights and case studies. The book's so new, in fact, that Vijay's launching it right here on the podcast. Add that to the list of benefits of being a loyal listener. Thanks to great former guest Carter Bussey, Workato CIO, for the intro to Vijay. And without further ado, Vijay, it really is my pleasure to welcome you to the podcast. Let's get started by having you share more about your background and how you got into the space.
It's Dan, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me on.
So my background in the broader integration space goes back a long time, more time than I'd care to admit. I was part of the founding team at TIBCO, which was sort of the leader in this integration space. And I had built a product called the TIB, which was the information bus, which was the first integration middleware product that was designed to make disparate software systems to work together. We called ourselves digital plumbers, to connecting all the applications. And what really turned me on was the business value that you get when you connected these applications. It was like 1 + 1 = 4. It's unlocked the power of the existing systems and actually the productivity of like what you can do across the company. And I had gone on to also start the middleware product line at Oracle called Fusion Middleware. That's like a bigger business than database right now for Oracle. But what really inspired our Workato journey was the time I spent in the consumer space. So I checked out enterprise software. I was doing a company called Quick. Think of it like it was like an Instagram for video, 2 years before Instagram came out, and with a live streaming, like Twitter's, like Telegram. And And it was a very exciting product, technical product, because we were doing all this live streaming stuff on 3G networks, in the early days of iPhone and smartphones. But, this experience really rewired for me how software should be. It's got to be really beautiful, inspiring, just welcoming and engaging to like do interesting things with it. At the same time, for this free product that was like $5 a month for like few people, like 5% of the people paid like a premium. The expectation was it was always on. When it went down or for a little bit, Ashton Kutcher would be screaming on Twitter about it. It was that whole experience about like around how a software should be, how it should work. In many ways, the expectations were higher. Just changed my perspective on how software should work. And when that company got bought by Skype, and when I sort of re-engaged with some of the people I'd worked with in the enterprise software, what I saw was there was a really big movement towards cloud that was already happening at that time, and it was looking like the early innings. And this movement was driven by business people that are not very technical. So the scale of integration just exploded, and the audience was no longer just IT people, but a much broader audience. So I was excited about bringing some of the playbooks of this beautiful, compelling software with under the covers, like really technical stuff, but making that really easy and accessible to the market. And so that's really where TIBCO started. So pretty much, I think all the various experiences in the integration, enterprise, and like the consumer space, like sort of led to what we are doing now.
You saw the automation space essentially at its inception as part of TIBCO, and now you're reinventing it again as part of Workato. I referenced the book earlier. What would you say is the new automation mindset?
Yeah, I think the mindset is actually not really new. I had the great opportunity to work with companies like FedEx and Amazon, Netflix, and various at TIBCO, Oracle, and Workato. In part of their transformation journey, what I saw is these kind of companies had a very unique approach or a mindset where they looked at the bigger picture of what's going on in their space, looked around the corner, and when there were some big changes, that were happening in the economy, they were not afraid to break things and build something more interesting and better and more relevant. And they also were aligned across the entire organization. Everybody was aligned around this mission. They had a role to play. They engaged everybody. So this kind of a systems thinking, like leaning into change, not just adapting to change, but making it happen, and democratization, kind of making it a team sport, was something that I was really compelling about all these. But the difference is with all those companies that had an incredible amount of resources to make it happen too. What's different now and what's new is that with AI and automation technologies and connectivity, low code connectivity, all of these things, anybody with this kind of a mindset can actually transform themselves. So it's new in the broader world, but in many ways it's not really new.
As you were doing research for the book, what was the one fact or maybe interview that surprised you most? Maybe even something that didn't quite make it into the book?
Yeah, there's one thing that I think put in the book. I talked to a lot of great leaders, and it was just the most exciting part of the book was talking to customers and like thought leaders and change agents in various companies. During that period, at one point, I was in our Singapore office meeting our team, and I know the Singapore office was we do a lot of our HR operations from there, and they do all our onboarding. We're known for like an incredible onboarding, and they do all this great onboarding. And there was this person called Jia Yang, who heads up our HR automations. And as I was talking to her, what I realized, what I learned was, 5 years before that, she was actually stocking supermarket shelves. She did not have any technical background. she joined Workato as like a HR associate to kind of help with the logistics of people coming on board. But then she saw that like she could automate that. So she learned, she picked up on Workato. She just, and she learned the product, and then she started automating, and then she couldn't stop. And it changed the game for how the employee experience, especially the new employee experience. And what blew my mind was we talk about this in the book. We talk about democratization, engaging your whole team. That the automation and AI actually open the aperture of who can participate, who can create, who can add value. It's not just the gurus and the experts; it's everybody. And there it is, like in our own company. And she was not the only one. Like one of her colleagues, Stephen Hoon, who does like systems for us. He was in some logistics company, not technical role. He came in to kind of help set up conference rooms and AV systems, and he runs like our IT, operations. He does these automations. So I think they say like good habits start from home. But this was already happening in our company while I was trying to tell the story about what customers are doing with it. That was very exciting. That I did put at least GIing story, I think, into the book.
You're changing lives. And like you said, your own company is just a little microcosm of the impact you're having around the world. So that's amazing.
Exactly.
You and I are both in the automation space, and every day we're meeting executives that sometimes make it hard to have a conversation about automation, because oftentimes we'll need to coach them about, how to find the right problem to solve, where to start on an automation journey. What's your lesson for leaders who are looking for a business problem to try to find where automation is the solution?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. Almost like the English definition of automation is taking something that is being done manually and do it automatically. So literally, I think if you go back in time and you look at things like invention of steam engines, or like automotive printing press, they really the automation was something different. It was transformative. It changed like how humans lived and configured their lives and organized ourselves. But if you look at the recent history of automation in software, it was really been about looking at where in your company people are doing repetitive tasks like data entry or like support or whatever, and then replace them with bots that mimic what humans do. So this type of view of automation, it's actually as a way to just replace people, is just like really problematic at many levels. First, it does save you a lot of costs. That's why people do it. It is actually game changing to your bottom line. It's great, but it's a temporary thing. It's like a sugar high. Transformation fundamentally is about rethinking for future and reimagining what you want to do, where your company wants to be. But when you go and look at what people are doing and replace them with bots that are doing exactly the same thing, you're just cementing in place how things were being done for the last 30 years, how a business process works. It's the opposite of like transformation or innovation. It's basically locking things into place. And it's such a very limited view, in my view, a little bit of a depressing view of automation. I think the real power of automation is more like some of this earlier generation of technologies where you have the opportunity to rethink about what, like customers' experience, expectations are changing. In pandemic, things became more digital, right? Digital business models, digital delivery. There is all these opportunities that either you get like, kind of like swiped by them, or you embrace them and you expand your TAM. So that's, to me, like the advice I would give to leaders is look at the big picture of what's happening around your space and what role a company with your DNA and expertise, forget about your systems and like, exactly what you're doing today. What can you actually apply it to and reimagine that? And what you will find that half the things you're automating, you may not even want to do them. I mean, there's nothing as useless as automating things that don't need to be done. So I think really, just taking a, like a bigger picture view of things and leaning into like changing, even if it means like breaking things up a little bit so that you can put them back better. So, so that's what I would say is that we should break. I think there's an opportunity, especially with AI, you can also apply AI exactly this way. Like there was a Goldman, estimate in trillions of dollars of economic impact AI can have. When I read that report, their analysis was also based on which which particular role and tasks, can be replaced by AI. So that's still a very limited view. I think it's great. It will save you cost, but there's an opportunity to actually fundamentally transform ourselves, who we are, like FedEx did, Netflix did, and so on. And I think if we only focus on replacing people with bots and miss the bigger picture of, the opportunity with AI, I think we'll miss the boat. So my recommendation is to sort of, get out of this task-centered, like, I'm going to automate this person's task, to what are we about as a company? Where do we want to be? And then work backwards from that.
I've had so many versions of this conversation, but that insight is brilliant, that it's not worth automating a task that you shouldn't be doing in the first place.
Yeah, it's just, makes no sense to do that.
Yeah, I may reuse that one, Vijay, with attribution, of course.
Actually, this is not, this is like something I borrowed from something Peter Drucker said once, but it applies so well to the current state of automation.
So here we are amid the euphoria surrounding generative AI. And it's pretty clear that before too long, all applications will have a conversational AI wrapped around them, a conversational experience. How do you think about both the opportunities for Workato of incorporating generative AI and then potentially some of the risks to the business model?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think it's really exciting. First of all, just on the application side, I just want to talk about that a little bit, because a lot of what we do is about orchestrating all of the, the applications and systems out there today, right? How does that change? But before that, I think, AI is going to do two things to apps. The first thing, or with apps, the first thing is what you said. I think there'll be natural language interface, so you can talk to the apps through a more natural language way of like, get me orders that are older than 30 days, or whatever, right? That kind of stuff from Salesforce. The apps will get that, and that is going to just like make it easier to work with. But I think there's going to be a bigger change. There's going to be Salesforce has so much data around orders, customers, prospects, opportunities. It can tell you, it's not just giving you the list of opportunities. It can tell you, it should be, these apps will also come with an LLM specific to the apps, which will give you insights into this opportunity. I would rate at this place, and you should follow up this way, and this one is in trouble. It's not just going to give you data. It will actually give you insights and give you some direction of what you might want to do with it. So I think because apps are, like Workday has an incredible knowledge base around how employees work, especially the big platform apps are going to have, they're going to leverage all of the knowledge and expertise they have into LLMs that are going to actually help us become smarter in how we work with those apps. That's number one. So that's the world of apps. What that means, from a company point of view is now when you're looking at, but apps are still constrained to their domains. They understand their domain. And now there's still hundreds of apps. Now they're joined by a lot of LLMs. They all may be, some of them are powered by OpenAI, some of them proprietary, whatever, right? So they're, domain specific LLMs, right? LLMs that understand invoices, orders. So you're going to have until today, orchestration, of how this orchestrating, it was all about how you orchestrate people, processes, and technology. That's how it has been. Now, you also are adding to that these LLMs, which are like digital brains. How do you orchestrate people, process, and technologies or apps and these digital brains? And the opportunity to apply, the potential is just amazing. I'll give you an example. Like we're working with a large consumer product company that gets millions of orders and invoices, from their suppliers and from the retailers that they distribute through. And they, today these orders come in, they're processing them in sequence, and some of them are like they follow the happy path, and you're able to execute them. But there's a lot of them that are exceptions that are badly formed. The data is off, or they don't fit the pattern, and they create a mess. They kind of are exceptions that have to be dealt with manually. So these kind of companies, what this company is looking to do is to put use LLMs to understand the invoice that's coming in and determine, not just like execute the happy path, but understand, okay, this is an exception. This is a very large invoice that needs to be handled differently. It will trigger an exception down the line. It will tell you, and actually tell you a plan for how to process that based on all the intelligence, how these things were being done before, right? So, and we are seeing the same thing, contract LLMs, invoice LLMs, and some of the app LLMs I'm talking about. These things are going to, today, we do automation with apps, but really it's a centrally designed by somebody, right? Like it's apps, SAP tells you how, something works, you customize it, but in your company, somebody decided how orders get executed. Real world does not fit into that because the real world also changes. It throws curveballs, and the curveballs, later you lose customers, you lose revenue, the experience is terrible. There's exceptions define our experience. And LLMs, along with the automation, can help you understand all these different types of scenarios that are emerging in real time when they come, and help you execute them appropriately. And if it sees a completely new scenario it doesn't understand, it will loop in people and it will learn from it, and the next time it will do. So there's an opportunity for us to truly get automated. The way I think about the impact is, we've always talked about companies need to be data driven, but being data driven in the past, until now has meant that you take all of the data that you have, you generate insights from it, and then you kind of change how your company works over the next few weeks, months. You're going to do projects to get better. Now, I call that offline data driven. You're taking the data. With LLMs, you have all of this intelligence around these new things that are applied at the point of when those business events, like a new customer, a new order, come in. So you are actually truly data driven in how you run the company. So I think AI can make us really real time and truly data driven. Same thing with automation. Automation now, we talk about all the apps, even use Workato recipes to automate them. These are all things somebody decided what should be automated. These are all what I call happy path automations. But true automation is about automating all of the different types of scenarios, what we would call exceptions, also automating them. So with AI, I think we get to really true potential of being data-driven and true potential of automation.
So we can't have this conversation without thinking about the humanness of work and the tasks that are innately human. And thanks to Workato, it's soon going to be ubiquitous, and all of the mundane work is going to be gone from work. And kind of a thought question for you is, what does it mean to be an employee, or what does it mean to be a human when we can outsource all of the mundane tasks to automation bots, and we get maybe a half a day to a day back to do something else? What's going to fill the void?
Yeah, no, that's a really, I think, really great question for these times, right? I think, we have our next generation coming up. What does this mean for the world and of work? There is no doubt that certain types of work, will get automated. Like I was I was sort of saying that's just a limited view of automation, but it is still an economically valuable thing, and that is going to happen. And it is going to disrupt work. I mean, when steam engine came in, like cars came in, it just put a whole number of jobs, made them obsolete, right? A stagecoach driver, or like the people that build the stagecoaches, or like whatever, pave the cow paths. Like all those people with these jobs became irrelevant. I think the key thing is that there will be a lot of disruption, and pain. There is no doubt about it. But at the same time, I really believe there is this, incredible opportunity to be for people in new roles, completely new roles, to be part of something really amazing. I'll just give you a consumer example of this to kind of make it more like easy for everybody to understand. The Khan Academy like put out a bot called Khan Migo, which is like based on OpenAI. I think you should go try it. It's a tutor that is, it's amazing. You want to learn math or some language, you're doing assignments. It's right there with you, and it will, as you're answering the questions, it will guide you, and it'll look at your answers and tell you like, where you might want to take a look at. It's like a very high quality tutor that's right there with you. And, for all these different subjects, like there's so much research out there. Kids with tutoring do one standard deviation better in test performances. And kids with one-on-one tutoring, usually like privileged kids, there's two standard deviations difference in their performance. With AI and something like Khan Migo, like I think anybody in the world, any student in like a village, in some like, in Africa, they will have access to high quality, one-on-one tutoring. I mean, this is game changing. It's the same thing I really believe is the opportunity at work. Like you talk about twin programming and there's some areas like when you work together with somebody else, you're better, right? I think what we're going to have is, it's a similar thing, like the tutor, like, you have a like LLMs, AI helping you actually process the work stream that you have and help you do it better, not just automate it, but make better decisions. I think we can be better individually. We can be, better collectively, and you're going to be able to do things and achieve results. I talked about a couple of examples of how it can completely transform the level of smarts that you have in a company. I think it will create new roles, new opportunities. It will create more value, and it also gives us some time back from just being, like this. There's a lot of busy work that takes up so much of our time that that we get back. So there will be disruption on certain jobs and roles. But I think this AI is there's a lot of hype, there's a lot of fraud, and AI has issues, with accuracy. All of those are true, and the human in the loop is going to be there. It is an important part. So that's another thing to understand. But the model of almost like a digital twin that is there, like helping you do better. And, I think the potential for productivity and like new types of roles is also very big, but there will probably be more disruption first before, the new world kind of comes into focus, and then, the new types of careers and jobs, come into focus, like what Jia Yang has done and so on. But I am count me on being the long-term optimistic side of what AI can do. But yeah, no, I think no rose-colored glasses on like the fact that it will cause pain and disruption as we get to that place.
Vijay, as a product person, you are in my personal Hall of Fame because you have launched multiple products that have had at least $1 billion of impact over your career. It's a legendary track record. I think back to like a couple of years ago when RPA, robotic process automation, was hot, and using a product like Automation Anywhere, Blue Prism, which were popular for a time, and then using Workato. And it's hard to describe the difference, but you have a visceral connection as a user to Workato that you just never had before. I feel like it's taking your kids to the neighborhood playground versus Disneyland. You never get them confused, even though maybe they serve similar jobs. What's your secret?
Well, I think the biggest thing I've been super fortunate throughout my career is I feel like I've been blessed with being in the right problem space, right? And more than that, being surrounded by amazing people, people that are like way smarter than me, in teams that really liked working together, and where we, people that embraced like challenges, like things, it's that mindset, I write about. I think I've been fortunate to be part of a journey where I experience that type of a mindset of growth mindset, like as a team. I learned so much from all these folks. I think there is no secret. I mean, we are all a product of our environment, and sometimes they say you're the sum of the 5 people closest to you, and I think there's a lot of truth to that.
You've made the shift from engineering leader, product leader, to entrepreneur, to CEO at scale in a way that very few have. What has that journey taught you about yourself?
I think it's about stay hungry, stay foolish, and don't take yourself too seriously. Your customers, partners, your teammates, they will teach you everything you need to know. It's all there. So to me, all these things like product leader to where I am, it just feels like a very natural journey. Even when we were doing product, I really, where I got my energy and ideas and inspiration was from the customers. And that, so when, switching over to the sort of outside of the product was not, I think there's a lot of skills. I mean, you don't have like the background, you have to kind of get the, understand the playbook, you have to learn from experts in that area. But from a, discomfort or, I didn't feel out of the zone to make that transition.
What's your advice to the kid who was graduating from IIT in the 80s? Looking back at your journey, what would you tell that kid?
I would say sometimes I think we have there's so much. I have 2 kids that just finished first year of college. So I saw their journey, and looking back at my journey, there is so much emphasis on where you go to school, the branding, and all of this kind of stuff. And especially when you go to a school like IIT where there is some branding, I think I would say you have, you feel like you've accomplished a lot by actually going to IIT. We have accomplished nothing by going to any place. It's what we do with, in our life beyond school that matters. So what I would say is that, be very humble. We haven't done anything yet. Some of the, the smartest and the best people I've worked, didn't go to this brand stuff, schools. And that's what I told my kids. I don't care where you go. It's what you do when you go to those places. So that's what I would say is, especially if you're coming from a school with sort of a name, you got to almost like work against, it's almost a disadvantage because you feel like you've achieved something. And that feeling is going to stop you from really achieving, things that are meaningful.
Hey, Vijay, we're about out of time. I know it feels like we're just getting started. Really, truly, congrats on not just today's book launch, but on an amazing career that I know is just getting started. Before I can let you go, any other thoughts that you want to share with the audience about the book? Anything about today's launch?
This book was a long time coming for me. This is, there is so much difficulty in the market with so much technologies and so much, hype. And how do you, there's always a sense of like, there's an app for that. There's a technology for that. I really wanted to kind of like really take the moment to kind of say, it's not about the technology. It's about our mindset and our team's mindset, in embracing change. And also like making it a team sport. It's so much funner if, like Bob Myers, says the Warriors ball is everybody gets touches, right? Like everybody gets touches, on the floor. And that mindset is really important. And I wanted us to go back to the basics a little bit outside of technology, because that is what is going to be necessary for us to truly take advantage of this moment that we have with generative AI.
Hey, Vijay, best of luck to you and the team. And again, congrats on the big launch today.
Thank you so much, Dan, for having me.
Well, that's a wrap for this week on AI and the future of work. As always, I'm your host, Dan Turchin from People Rain. And of course, we're back next week with another fascinating guest.